Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Preston Educational Academy. As we know, we are doing business law and ethics. Now let us move on with the lecture 2. Let us start with the features of a valid contract. So here, two parties should create a legal relationship. Means here, the parties who are involved in the contract, the parties who are involved in the contract should fulfill the obligations that are intended at the time of entering in the contract. Means here we know that there should be two parties involved in the contract. We know that one is the offerer and one other is the acceptor or offeree. So here both the parties who are involved in the contract should fulfill the obligations that are intended at the time of entering. Means if here suppose A is willing to sell his car to B. So here A should be ready to fulfill the obligation of selling the car, and B should be ready to pay the money or consideration that is desired by the A. So here both the parties are entering into a legal relationship to fulfill the obligations for which they are entering into a contract. Now moving on to proposal. The person who gives proposal is known as offerer, promisor or proposer. Means the person who gives, here in this example A becomes the promisor, offerer or proposer. So the offer should be clear and lawful. Here we can understand that the offer should be clearly specified, clearly given, and it should be for some lawful object. If suppose A was giving an offer to B for committing any crime, so here in that case the proposal is clear but it is unlawful. So here that cannot be considered as a legal or lawful proposal. It should be, it becomes void contract. Next comes the acceptance. So the person who accepts the offer is known as offeree, promisee or proposee. Here offerer, offeree, promisor, promisee, proposer, proposee. So the acceptance can be given written, oral or through gestures. Means here the acceptance can be given through either three ways, either in written or oral or even through gestures. If accepting and just giving, nodding your head, accepting things by nodding your head, accepting things telling the thumbs up, it comes under gestures. So here acceptance given through gestures is also accepted, but one thing to remember is silence is not considered to be acceptance. Silence is not considered to be acceptance. Means here if A is proposing, if A is having an offer for B to sell his car, and if B is not answering anything, not accepting either in written, oral or through gestures, and B is just sitting silent, so in that case A cannot assume B to be B that he have accepted the offer. Now, lawful consideration. Here, the mutual benefit that either parties are getting, means what is consideration is what is the mutual benefit that either parties involved in the contract are getting. Now, if suppose with the same example, A is selling his building to B. So here B has to pay some consideration to A. Suppose the building value is 1 crore rupees. So for A the consideration is 1 crore and for B the consideration will be building. Means there is some mutual benefit between them. So the consideration should also be lawful, that can be enforceable by the law. It is generally in terms of money. Means here if the consideration, this 1 crore what the B is giving to A to buy the building, should also be lawful. So here if this 1 crore what B is giving to A for buying the building is earned through gambling or through robbery or through any other unlawful means, so in that case that consideration is not valid and the contract will not be a valid contract. So here it means that the lawful consideration is mandatory for a contract to be valid. Next, lawful object. Here, the contract should be for lawful object. Contract for an unlawful object is unenforceable by law. Means here, the contract should be for something lawful. Means here, the buying the building is lawful. Here, the building is a lawful object using which both the parties are entering into contract. So, if there was something unlawful, if suppose there were any intoxications, in such case that is an unlawful objects. So, the unlawful objects cannot be entered into a valid contract and it cannot be enforceable by the law also. So, the lawful object is very important and the consideration that is paid for a lawful object is also very important feature for a contract to become valid. Moving on to the capacity to perform. The contract should be in the capacity to perform. It should not be for something that is uncertain or impossible to perform. Means here the contract, whatever the parties are entering into, should be or certain to happen. It should not be something that is uncertain or impossible. If suppose A enters into contract with B telling that to get Chandrayaan 3 from the moon, to get back the Chandrayaan 3 from the moon, but we cannot take into consideration that is that going to happen in near future or not. We don't know, it is uncertain. It may happen that our scientists are efficient enough to get the Chandrayaan 3 back, or it may not happen. So it is uncertain in near future. So such contracts, such capacity to perform, if it is uncertain, then such contracts becomes invalid contracts. It is not considered to be a valid contract. And it should not even be impossible. It should not also be impossible. Means here, if A and B are both couples, and if A is promising B that he will marry B, then suddenly before the marriage night A met with an accident and he have expired. So now, is it possible for B to get married with A? It is not possible because the person who entered into contract have expired. So in that case it becomes impossible to perform the contract. So here only the certain events that can happen can be in the capacity to perform. The uncertain and impossible events cannot be considered as a valid contract. Now moving on to capacity of parties. Means the parties who are in eligible for contract becomes the capacity of parties. Means the parties in the contract should be major and of sound mind. It is clear that whenever a person entering into a contract, so either of the parties should be major. Major means should be more than 18 years or should attain the age of 18 years. So below 18 years is considered to be a minor, and a minor cannot enter into any type of contract. And the person should also be of sound mind. Means the person should not have any lunatic, like any mental illness or he should not be any fool, or he should not be any drunkard. Means even an intoxicated person is of on sound mind. So in that case, the person cannot enter into contract with a sound person. So parties like minors, insolvents, unsounded mind, criminals cannot enter into any contract. Here minors, as we understood, insolvents are the persons who cannot pay the debts, owned by them, and the court declares them to be insolvent. So in that case, it is a basic logic that when he cannot pay the own debts of the himself, then how can he pay the consideration? So here the insolvent person, unsound mind, criminals who have already criminal backgrounds cannot enter into any valid contracts. They are declared void by the law itself. So they cannot enter into any contracts. So people of unsound mind and all cannot enter, and only the majors and sound mind and people who are not declared void by the court can enter into a contract. Coming to the free consent. The offeree who accepts the offer should give his assent willingly and freely. Consent given by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation are not considered as free consent. Means here the acceptor who is giving the acceptance should give his acceptance, consent, willingly and freely. Means without any force or without any pressure. Here coercion, undue influence, fraud and misrepresentation. These four are where using which they get the consent, but when using these four, it is not considered to be a free consent. Now let us understand in detail. That is, coercion means physical harm. Coercion means physical harm. Means if any kidnapper is kidnapping the person and forcing the parents by physically torturing the victim and asking for ransom to the parents or family members, then that is coercion. Means he is having a physical and mental harm to the person to give his free consent, influencing the person. Then undue influence means using the dominant position to influence the person morally. Means if suppose there is a doctor who is influencing the person, family member, asking for bribe, telling that if you can get me extra 1 lakh rupees, then only I can operate the member, who your family member. So in that case he is using his dominant position as a influence, and he is mentally influencing the dependent attender of the patient. Fraud, trying to deceive someone and expressing the data in the wrong way, trying to project the data or express the data wrong way in intention to deceive someone. And misrepresentation is there is some gap between the communication between the parties, and they are not intentionally trying to deceive someone but by mistakenly giving the wrong information. So either of the four ways, if they are able to get the consent, then that is not considered to be a free consent. In the absence of these four conditions, if the consent is given freely and willingly, it is considered to be the free consent. Hope you people are getting it. If any doubts, you can please leave comments so that I can answer to your questions. Now moving on to legal formalities. The parties entering into a contract the contract should be registered or signed by any authorized person, or should follow any legal formalities that are laid by law that makes it a valid contract. Now if suppose A is willing to sell his building to B, means here selling a building should have some registration done, should be signed by some authorized person, and some legal formalities should be followed for getting that contract executed. So in that case, if that is happening, if all those are present or any of them are present, the registration or sign of the authorized person or any legal formalities are followed, then in that case it becomes a valid contract. If suppose for example, if A is lending money to B, okay, he has paid 50,000 rupees and he had made the agreement on a plain paper without any notary or without any bond paper or something. He had just made the agreement on a plain white paper and both the parties have signed. So in that case, there is no registration of the contract, there is no signature of any authorized person, nor they have followed any legal formalities. So in that case, this is not considered to be a valid contract, and this contract cannot be enforceable by the law. So here the formalities should be followed correctly. All the procedures should be followed correctly that are laid by the law. Then only that becomes a valid contract. So in today's class, we discussed about the features of a valid contract, and hope you people had the concept clarity. If not, please watch the video again for getting the concept clarity. You can watch it multiple times and make your appropriate notes. And uh, thank you, and please do like, share and subscribe to my channel for more videos like that.